let's keep it rolling, ladies and gentlemen. We have coming up next. It is Biotricity. It's ticker BTCY, and we have the company's CEO here. There he is, Waqaas Al-Siddiq. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I am doing good today. We're having a good day so far. Let's keep it going, and I'll let you take it away with your presentation. Tell us a little about Biotricity.
Thank you, Brent, and thanks everybody for joining. One of the things, standard clause for forward-looking statements, part of what we're going to be discussing today is the vision of the company and what we view as forward-looking statements, and whatever is talked about is our expectations and what we believe we can achieve, but investors should do their own due diligence. And with that, I'd like to kick it off with talking about the vision behind Biotricity and what we're excited about today. Of course, our business has been doing really well through the pandemic, and as things open up, we're very excited with the recent financing, which will be used to expand our sales force and our operations. But Biotricity, when we started the company, we really looked at remote patient monitoring and saw the gaps. And the gap that we saw in the cardiac landscape was that patients get diagnostics for sure, but diagnostics, and of course I'm going to oversimplify this, was really stuck between two types of solutions. One was passive recording, or the Holter market, Holter monitoring, and where you put a device on a patient, you send them home, you peel it off, you mail it back, and 3 weeks later you get a report, which is a great space for low-risk patients, but for high-risk patients, it just doesn't work because the patient can have an adverse event while they're wearing the device. And so the next market is a market called mobile cardiac telemetry, which is real-time cardiac monitoring, where you put a device onto a patient, you send them home, you come back, and then of course you clean up the device and you put it onto the next patient. But when the device is on the patient, it's analyzing their data, their ECG, in real time. When it detects an issue, it transmits it to a call center and can deal with emergency response. And so we saw an unmet need in this space, in the mobile cardiac telemetry space, with limited players and older technology. But what we saw was a broader problem in remote patient monitoring, which is that these cardiac patients, once they've been diagnosed, what happens to them? They end up getting a prescription, or they end up getting a pacemaker, defibrillator installed, or some sort of surgical intervention, and then they go into disease management. So every 6 months, they're going in and out of the doctor's office with no real tool and no real insight for the physician as to what is going on with them. And so at Biotricity, our vision was, okay, from cardiac diagnostics, how do we follow this patient through this care journey? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about our vision and how we started in the diagnostic space, and that is our core competency, and how we are really trying to follow this patient, that once they've been diagnosed on our product, how do we continue to gain and glean insights and help them along their cardiac journey? Because as we all know, there is no cure to cardiac disease. And so today we've got our BioFlex product, which is that real-time diagnostic solution. It's insurance reimbursable, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance reimbursable. We took a very unique approach to the business. Traditionally, diagnostics are done as an outsourced service. And so what that means is, if I come to you and you're my cardiologist, you'll say, hey, Waqaas, I don't know what's going on, but you're high risk, so you'll give me a prescription and you'll send me across the street to get the test done. And then I'll come back with the report, and the doctor, the hospital, they bill insurance. They make $25 to read the report, but they don't get any of the diagnostic revenue, which is $850. And so our model is really to provide all the technology to the doctors and the hospitals so that they can use it, they can bill insurance, they collect the revenue, and Biotricity has a technology as a service model. And that has led to an incredible stickiness in our business. We have very high retention rate, 100% reorder rate. We did triple-digit growth last year. We'll do triple-digit growth this year and the year after. And that is just in our base product, right? Just we're talking about BioFlex here. And of course, I'll talk about what our plan and our vision is beyond BioFlex. And so we expect that growth rate to continue. But what we're really excited about now is really executing on our product roadmap, which will enable vertical growth, because we can sell within our existing customers and increase our total addressable market. And while we're doing that, deploy the capital that we just brought into sales expansion. So we've got this horizontal growth, hire more sales reps, go from 23 states where we are today and into 50 states and continue while we're doing that to execute on our product roadmap. And so to take a little bit of a step back, why cardiac disease? Why is it important? Well, cardiac disease is the #1 killer in every country in the world. It's the #1 expense in terms of healthcare dollars spent, pretty much in every country in the world, and especially in the United States. 30 million Americans have received a diagnosis, but 70 million are at risk. So you're talking about a massive population. And as we get older, as the baby boomer generation ages, all of these people are at higher risk. And the problem is, because it is a chronic condition, physicians with diagnostics and the tools that they have available, they don't have an integrated approach. They have pieces of the puzzle, right? They're collecting data from these different systems. Nothing is communicating, and they're collecting, diagnostic data. Then they do a procedure. Then they go back. They collect information from the patient again. So it's very ad hoc. And so what patients and physicians both need is really this concept of connected monitoring and long-term collection of data that reduces patient risk, but also physician liability and speeds up diagnosis. And so if we take a look at the cardiac journey of a patient, how does that work, right? So a patient comes in, and diagnostics is really where everything begins, and that's where we operate with our core product. So patient comes in, they're referred to a cardiologist, they're put on a diagnostic device. That diagnostic device collects all their electrical activity, determines. It gives a summary data to the physician. The physician will look at all of that data that comes from that device and make a treatment decision. And that treatment decision is going to be, a prescription or an interventional procedure. And then what ends up happening, which is very key here, is that this patient then goes in and out of this doctor's office for management and follow-up. And anytime something goes outside of base, or the patient's complaining of a symptom, or something has changed, or the doctor sees something in their 6-month checkup, they go back to diagnostics. So everything rotates back to diagnostics. So our vision at Biotricity was, of course, we're not in the interventional procedure game. How do we follow the patient through this journey? How do we collect data points along this map? How do we touch all of these rings? And how do we develop solutions that can touch more than just a diagnostic ring? And so when you talk about that, and what does that mean for us as a company? Well, BioFlux today is high-end diagnostics, and that's $1 billion market, and that's our total addressable market. We have the BioTray product, which is with the FDA. We expect clearance hopefully within 60 days, and launch that product thereafter. That product is for the passive recording market. I mentioned it earlier, which is you put a device on a patient, you send them home, but there's no communication. You get the report later. That's a $2 billion market. So that we can sell into our existing network across 23 states, and that increases our total addressable market from $1 billion to $3 billion. And then when you start going into disease management, you need a number of items together, right? You need telemedicine, you need personal medical device kits, you need complex cardiac management. But when you deliver all of those together, you accelerate your total addressable market from $3 billion to $50 billion. And that is really what we're doing with our product portfolio and our plans here at Biotricity. So, why is this important? Why would we look at this right now? Well, first of all, the trends are going this way, right? If we believe anything at Biotricity, and I'm sure many of you believe the same thing, is what does the future of healthcare look like? And the future of healthcare is not going to be passive. It's going to be active, real-time data collection. Patients are going to consume devices and healthcare in the comfort of their home or on the go, and then they're going to go into the hospital for procedural work. And this is where global remote patient monitoring is going to go from 23 billion to 117 billion. And CMS, Medicare, insurance, everybody's pushing this. So our vision and what we're doing at Biotricity directly aligns with what insurance and what CMS and what the direction is. And that's what is very exciting, because, when you have a market and you're executing on a product portfolio, and that market itself is growing, your opportunity grows with it. And so today, we talk about our current BioFlux product, and as this is the beginning of the funnel, right? So diagnostics, what we did was the traditional solution today when it comes to diagnostics for real-time high-end diagnostics is outsourced, as I mentioned. So patient walks in, get a prescription, go across the street. The doctor in the hospital makes $25, and the service provider who owns the technology, because they don't sell tech, they generate the bulk of the revenue, which is $850. So we came in and we said, well, we don't want to be a clinical service company. We don't want to service the patient. What we want to do is we want to service the hospital, the healthcare organizations, the providers. And we want to do a technology as a service model because we are a tech company. At our core, we are a tech company, and we want to execute on our vision of following this patient through their care journey. And so we don't want to get caught up in servicing patients. So we change the business model and we provide all the technology to the hospital and the physician. This allows them to bill. So they bill $850 and they pay Biotricity approximately $250 every time they use the product. And so if they use that product once a month and the device has a 2-year lifetime, so put it on patient A, come back, clean it up, put it on patient B, that device generates us approximately $7,000 in revenue over 2 years. And so that's a very high margin. But more importantly, it also creates a great revenue stream for the healthcare provider because they're going from making $25 to $500. So we're actually enabling ourselves having a very sticky recurring revenue model, but we're also creating the same thing for the provider, which is why we have such great retention rate and very high reorder rate. And what's also important to note is as you get more data, you get better diagnostics, because the biggest issue with these patients is you're worried they're going to have a stroke, a heart attack. So you don't want to send them home on a passive device for a long period of time. So you end up doing shorter studies. Well, shorter studies don't catch intermittent issues because by nature they're intermittent. They're not going to show up in 1 day or 2 days. So the longer you monitor, the more likely you are to figure out what's going on with the patient. So faster diagnosis, less risk to the patient. But while they're on that device, if it's not connected, there's a risk. And that's why connected real-time monitors have better diagnostic timing. And so if we kind of just take a step back and look at our solution, it's not just a device, it's a device plus a third-party monitoring center that gets the data from the device when the device detects an anomaly and determines if there is an emergency or not, and all clinically accurate data, which is summarized. So all the summary data, the full data is provided to the physician. Them and their staff can look at that data and determine what they want to make. So our solution encompasses the device, the cloud, all of our software. It's an ecosystem that is then delivered. And that, to summarize, is for the BioFlux. What we've done is, cheaper, better, faster on the technology side, right? So we've got the smallest, most accurate device in the market. And we've layered that with the business model that creates a recurring revenue and a profit center for the physician or the health or the hospital, and also creates a recurring revenue for Biotricity. And so today, that success has led us to, we're in 23 states. I mean, when we were coming into COVID, I believe we were in 7 or 8 states. So we've gone and accelerated our growth through the pandemic, which is, I think, a testament to the team that we have at Biotricity, but also our technology. We've grown every quarter since inception. Our FDA clearance was in early 2018. We spent 2018 figuring out insurance and then launched the product in 2019 and have grown ever since. And now we've got this pipeline of products, which I spoke about, and I'll talk to again in just a minute, which is designed to go deeper into these accounts. So now that we have, over 300 centers, over 1,000 cardiologists, we can sell our existing solutions within that customer base. So then we get a network effect. We layer vertical growth with horizontal growth, which will continue the pace of growth that the company has had thus far. And so, to talk about some of the products that we and going back to what I talked about earlier, which was this idea of increasing our total addressable market. So the BioTray product is to deal with the passive monitoring market. So the biggest problem with the passive monitoring market is that it takes 3 weeks to get a report or 2 weeks to get a report. And so we solved that with the BioTray. It is still a passive recorder, but it's got connectivity so that when the study is done, it dumps all the data. So you can turn the report around, not 2 weeks after the patient has worn it, but within a day or two. And so that is going to lead to better diagnosis. And again, this is a product that we can sell into our existing clinic network. Then we announced this product, which is called the BioKit, which really is a set of personal medical devices, because many of these cardiac patients have other issues, right? They have respiration issues, they have sleep apnea issues, they have hypertension. So we've combined blood pressure cuffs, pulse oximeter, all of this technology, and it all connects into our ecosystem so that once a patient has been diagnosed, you can give them this kit send them home. And so when they're coming back for that follow-up visit, they're not coming with no data, so that the doctor has no idea what's going on with that patient. So these devices collect all of that data and centralize it and summarize it. And more importantly, all of this is reimbursable and billable by the doctor. So it'll give them a report. That doctor can then bill for that report. The patient feels comforted because they've got these tools that they've never had before inside of their home to keep track and manage themselves. And all of this is facilitated by a combination of our HIPAA compliant virtual clinic platform combined with these personal medical devices that the patients will have. And all of it, again, insurance reimbursable and creating a revenue stream for the doctor and for us. Similarly, what we've noticed is that cardiac patients have virtually nothing. It's very unfortunate to manage their care. You've got the Apple Watches, but 30 seconds of ECG data collection on an Apple Watch or Samsung Watch or smartwatch doesn't do anything because these patients have intermittent issues, which is why when you try to diagnose them, you put them on a monitor for up to 30 days of continuous recording. Diabetics have a glucometer. They can check their blood sugar and they can manage. And so what we did was to solve this problem is we took all of our BioFlux medical grade technology, simplified it, and dropped it into a consumer product. So this is not going to be FDA cleared. It's totally consumer, direct to consumer. And it's really designed for these patients to self-manage their lifestyle. And what that means is that they can collect continuous ECG data or heart rhythm data for a long period of time so that they can see the range. They can see their heart rate ranges continuously, the highs and the lows, and they can wear this and it passively does it. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to engage with it. And again, if they feel something, they can mark a diary note saying, hey, I felt a symptom at this time. So that when they go back to the doctor and they're talking to the doctor, they can actually go back and say, hey, I felt, an issue back 2 weeks ago on September this date, and they can actually see their heart rate range on that day. And this again integrates with that BioKit, the blood pressure cuff and the pulse oximeter. And again, all of this is designed to create this cohesive view to support the patient once they go into that, if you recall the rings that I shared earlier, into this idea of management and follow-up once the patient has been diagnosed. So it's the last two rings of that cardiac journey. I get diagnosed, I get some medical intervention done, and then I go into coaching, follow-up, and disease management. And this combined with the BioKit will deliver that. And so to kind of talk about, because a lot of people talk about, Biotricity in the context of other companies and cardiac companies and whatnot. And we like to tell investors, what is our vision? Because we don't view ourselves as a cardiac diagnostic company. We view ourselves more like what Livongo did for diabetes, which was develop a glucometer, put patients into a disease management program. That is what we're trying to do for cardiac. So we are the cardiac version of Livongo, and that is our vision. We think Livongo did a fantastic execution in the diabetes space, and we want and our vision from inception has been to do the same thing in the cardiac space. And we talked a lot about things that we're doing. A lot of that is a testament to the team. We think of the company as three different groups that work symbiotically together, which is management, sales, and operations, all with lots of experience, all with multiple companies under their belt. And with that, I'll turn it over to any questions that somebody may have.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Waqaas. We have a couple questions here. Question from our audience. Nalika was asking about the tray. Will the device be user-friendly for caregivers so to detect an emergency in their patient? Kind of like asking about the alerting for the monitoring system.
Yeah, so excellent question. So that monitor is designed to collect and store data and periodically upload it. So for sure, caregivers can see the data from the BioTray and look at it, but it does not have the same alert functionality as the BioFlux. The BioFlux will automatically alert, but the BioTray is really meant for the passive recording market. Our plan is to, as battery technology gets better and cellular chips get smaller, the BioTray form factor will also have that capability, but not at first launch.
Gotcha. Thank you for asking that. And we're going to have to wrap here. Unfortunately, had a couple more questions, but up against the clock. Biotricity, the ticker is BTCY. We had the CEO here, Waqaas Al-Siddiq. Thank you very much for joining, sir. Have a good rest of your day.